Hi, I'm Lynn Shue, and I'm one of the 5 Cabarrus County Commissioners, and we're out here today at the Barrier Farm, and I got with me my friend Dennis Testerman, and we're going to talk about soil and water conservation in Cabarrus County. And Dennis has been with the county for quite some time, and he is our Senior Conservation Resource Specialist. How did soil and water get started in Cabarrus County?
Well, I've got a little bit of an amateur historian running through my blood, and I've looked in that a little bit and had some help from some other folks. And there were actually groups of folks back in the early 1900s that were organizing in Cabarrus County to try to address conservation needs, but officially we're tied in with a national movement that goes back to the late 1930s in response to the Dust Bowl problems out in the Midwest, where homesteaders were plowing up native prairies and the soils weren't stable and the winds began to blow all the topsoil away. So there was a North Carolina native named Hugh Hammond Bennett who was born and raised in Anson County, had himself a degree in chemistry from University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and began to petition our national leaders to organize a national effort to try to address the loss of farmland due to erosion out in the Midwest. And so that's how they got started. And to honor him, the very first soil and water conservation district in the nation was established in Anson County. It was called Brown Creek Soil and Water Conservation District, and now there are over 3,000 of these districts scattered throughout the United States and its territories.
You know, I was telling you a little earlier, I used to go to the beach going that way, going down on the other side of Wadesboro there, and I'd cross that Brown Creek many a time and never knew the history behind it. So I'm glad you shared that with us, Dennis. Now we want to move to just a little bit about conservation in Cabarrus County in particular. You know, a lot of people like Mr. Barrier here and on this farm have conservation easements. Why do we have conservation easements, Dennis?
So the original enabling legislation that set districts up as subunits of state government gave us the authorization to hold conservation easements on land. But we didn't start working in that direction until about 10 years ago. We discussed it for several years, and then we started taking on easements about a decade ago now. It's really a nice fit with our mission to protect all of our natural resources, not just soil and water, but air, plants, and wildlife or animals. So we're trying, in this context where we've got so much population growth pressure from Charlotte and just the whole state of North Carolina in general, we're seeing a rapid loss of farmland. And so we've joined up with the state and federal governments, taking advantage of funding programs that they have to, in some cases, actually purchase conservation easements. And so that's what we've done on 30-some acres of farmland that Dan Barrier owns. And basically, property rights in North Carolina can be thought of as like a bundle of sticks or a bundle of pencils, and you can give away various rights for a power line to come across your property. In this case, where Dan Barrier gave up the rights to develop the property. So the deed that's recorded in the Register of Deeds office states what can and can't be done with the land. He can keep farming it the way that he's been farming it and adjust to new farming opportunities in the future. There's a 1 acre farmstead envelope that's reserved if they ever needed to build a farm building to facilitate what's going on that land. Otherwise, it's protected forever from development. It will never have houses on it. It'll always be land that's available for us to grow food and fiber on in Cabarrus County.
Well, I think that's a wonderful thing that they started back then, because after all, particularly here in Cabarrus County, we see that the building is growing and going and everywhere, and obviously these developers, you know, need land to do that. And so it's good that we can preserve and conserve the resources that we have for generations to come. I like the idea of having an acre set aside, you know, for a barn or whatever they might need for their tractors or whatever to supplement the use on the farm there. That's a good thing. Another one of the things that we do in the soil and water, Dennis, and obviously you've been doing it a long time, what about these significant natural heritage areas? In particular, one that we've been working on is the Souther Wetland Prairie. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that and the significance of that area.
So we did an inventory back in the late 1990s using monies that the county commissioners had made available and matching that with state funds. Hired consulting biologists to look over the entire county and find the best natural areas that we had that had unusual plants or unusual animals, or just a habitat, a setting that was special, that was worthy of protection. So one of the best sites that we identified was the Souther Prairie, also located out in the Mount Pleasant area. The family oral history lets us know that that was a prairie from the very early days that folks in the Souther and Ritchie families bought that land. So it goes back to the 1700s, and it has attracted research scientists from UNC Charlotte, and we recently had somebody from out in the Midwest that came out. They've taken seeds out of the prairie, and they're now being sold by seed companies to use for conservation purposes, because the genetics of those seeds have them uniquely adapted to the site conditions here, and they work well in other sites in the southeast that have similar site conditions. So we're very, very excited to be working on that project, and that's one that right now we're trying to use state and local monies to actually purchase that. It is so important that the state wants to put that as part of their natural preserve system, in the State Department of Agriculture.
Yeah, and that's wonderful that that's in Cabarrus County too, because like you said, they reaching out from other places to buy the seeds coming off of that natural prairie. And I personally have never been out there, but I'm hoping to get there sometime soon. And just one final thought here before we switch here, Dennis, and that is, where does the funding come from for Cabarrus Soil and Water? I know Cabarrus Commission, you know, the county commission contributes some, but where does the other funding come from for like programs like what we've got here on the Barrier Farm?
So we're part of a public-private partnership, and on the public side we work closely with the Natural Resources Conservation Service and the U.S. Department of Agriculture. On the state level we work with the Division of Soil and Water Conservation within the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. We frequently are able to tap into some other money streams, either through, we've got a grant right now from the North Carolina Wildlife Commission, we've got another grant from the North Carolina Clean Water Management Trust Fund. So we use all those funding resources and the technical expertise that these various agencies have as well to get the job done that we've got here in Cabarrus County to do.
Well, I tell you, before I got on the commission and before I was your liaison to the soil and water, I didn't know a lot about soil and water, and it plays an important role in preserving lands in Cabarrus County. And I'll tell you, Dennis, I thank you for coming out here, spending your time today and being with me on this segment of Out and About. Thank you, Dennis, for your time and for your effort.
Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for your support.
You're very welcome. We're out on the Dan Barrier farm this morning, and I've got Dan Barrier with me here, one of the brothers that owns this farm here. Dan, good to see you this morning. Enjoyed our conversations already this morning, and I want you to tell us, in your words, what has soil and water conservation and easements, that type thing, meant to you and the farm here?
Well, it really at first, you know, you talk about the good and the bad, or what could happen, or maybe we could lose it for some reason, or tie it up somewhere where, you know, we just didn't know. But Dennis helped us understand what we were dealing with, and schooled us on, you know, how things is going to work, and over several times. And I mean, this took a little process, and you know, several years and stuff like that. And so actually, once my mind was made up and knew what was going on and how it was going to go, because I kept asking questions: can I do this? Can I do that? What can I can't do?
Right.
Is I'm going to be blocked out of something or whatever? But you know, everything that we was going to work for is in the forestry. I got forestry on that land too, and farming. So I was one to be able to do anything like I was normally going to do.
Right.
You know, and once I found out that it wasn't that bad or nothing like there's nothing bad about it at all. It's a good thing, and so that's the reason we went with it. But Dennis helped us a lot.
So what you're saying is this was not an overnight decision.
No.
This was a couple of years.
Yeah. Well, after years, but I knew that this was the way to go, and I wanted to protect the place.
Right.
And I just didn't want to see it go nowhere but what it's doing now.
Well, I don't know how many we have of these particular conservation easements in Cabarrus County. I know we've got quite a few of them, and we've got some other areas that we're looking into, but I think Dennis said a little while ago that you've got an area of about 30 acres protected.
Yep.
You know, and that of course is good, but I would imagine you probably got plans to conserve some more at some point in the future.
There are some other plans in for some more. Yep. My brother even he's already put in some plans for some easement stuff, and so we're trying to get more involved in it as time goes on. And
there's a lot more to soil and water conservation than we can ever say in a 10 or 15 minute episode of Out and About. But you know, I'm appreciative of you and people like you that see that there is a need to conserve. Yeah. Because if we don't conserve it, then all we're going to be is another New York or another Chicago. Right. And this is an area here in Cabarrus County and in North Carolina where we can still have a part of the country here. People can come out and visit, and it will also give us food for the future. You know, you grow cattle on this farm, I think. You do logging, you do all kind of things. You might want to elaborate maybe just for a couple seconds on that, you know, what all you do here on this farm.
We raise grain and stuff and sell cattle to them for the meat and the markets and stuff, and so we just got a lot of things going on. Very valuable resource here on all farmland, very valuable. And people don't see this land like it's everywhere, but it's not, and it's getting scarce.
Yeah. So you would, if you got some of your friends and buddies that own land and are farmers, would you recommend this conservation easement?
Very much, very much, because it's the only way that you're gonna keep it here. I don't see no other way.
Yeah.
You know, you got it's here to stay.
Well, like I said, it's good that we got laws that we've set this aside. Well, Dan, I appreciate you taking your time because you got so much going on this farm, taking away your time to help us, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Okay, well, that'll wrap it up for this edition of Out and About.
If you have suggestions for topics or location that you would like to see on Out and About, please contact us. Our email address is outandabout@cabarruscounty.us.